let's look just briefly at the Jesus movement. This is not the teaching so much, but the people. We know a few things. We know that the followers of Jesus were all Jewish. We know that Jesus didn't have anything to do with Gentiles. You know that in the Christian Bible, Jesus says to his followers, I am only here for the Jewish people. He refuses to speak to non-Jews. He says to his disciples, go not unto the cities of the Gentiles or the Samaritans. Go not unto the cities of the Samaritans or the Gentiles. He says, I'm only here for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So we know that the followers of Jesus originally were only Jews, no Gentiles. Number two, we know that this movement was based in Israel. Jesus was living in the Galilee, and then he came to live in Jerusalem for the last week. We know that this movement was monotheistic. The followers of Jesus, like Peter and James, the whole group of people who followed him, they believed in one God. They didn't worship Jesus as God. And number four, they were Torah observant. This movement that was centered around Jesus, these followers of Jesus, in the 2nd century, become known as Ebionites and Nazarenes. These are groups of Jews who were Torah observant, and they only believed that Jesus was the Messiah. They did not believe he was God. And that's what happened to this movement. You now had these people called Nazarenes and Ebionites. But they basically die out by the end of the 2nd century. After about the year 200, you don't find any more Jews who thought that Jesus was the Messiah and are Torah observant. What happens is that movement dies out. Around the year 70, Jerusalem is destroyed. The temple is destroyed. Most of those people were living in Jerusalem. They're killed. The ones who aren't killed get scattered. And now they're living, very few of them, among basically the Jewish people, the rest of the Jewish people who were waiting for the Messiah to come the first time. And Paul's converts, Paul, who never met Jesus, is the one that starts formulating all these new strange ideas. And Paul goes to the non-Jews. Paul says in the book of Acts, since the Jewish people are not receptive to believing in Jesus, I'm going to go to the Gentiles. That's what Paul says. Since the Jews are not really buying into the Jesus thing, I'm going to go to the Gentiles. And Paul goes and makes many, many converts out of the Gentiles. The thing that's fascinating about Paul is when you read his words, he never, ever, ever mentions anything about Jesus, the life of Jesus, or anything that Jesus taught. Nothing. Because he never knew Jesus. It's all of his own ideas about who Jesus was. To him, Jesus is a sacrifice who dies for people's sins. Now being a Jew is not so much a matter of being from the line of the Jewish people biologically. Being a Jew for Paul is someone who believes in the Messiah. So what happens is, after the year 200, we see there's a big break from Judaism. All of the people now who believe in Jesus, virtually all of them are non-Jews. There's a movement that's based basically outside of the land of Israel. They become Trinitarian, which means they believe that Jesus was God. The Torah has been nullified. You don't find the descendants, the disciples of Paul, getting circumcised, observing kashrut, keeping Shabbat, keeping any of the holidays, keeping anything in the Torah. The movement basically abandons the Torah. What happens to their relationship to the Nazarenes and the Ebionites? They persecute them. This is the ultimate irony, that the followers of Paul persecute the Ebionites and the Nazarenes, who are really the real followers of Jesus. The real followers. But they're persecuted as heretics. Who was the real heretic? Paul's the real heretic. And finally, they turn against the Jewish people in general and all of Judaism. We know the history of Christianity is a very ugly, brutal history when it comes to the Jewish people. They persecuted us, they tortured us, they killed us. They really turned against us with such hostility. If you read the preachings of the church leaders in the 3rd century, the 4th century, they have the most vile, ugly, terrible things to say about Jewish people and about Judaism. So the movement, just very, as a final statement, to look at the incredible change that took place here. In the beginning, they're all Jews. They simply believe that Jesus is the Messiah. They don't worship him as God. They're Torah observant. Within 200 years, completely changed. No more Jews. It's all Gentile. They worship Jesus as God. They throw the Torah in the toilet. They now think the Jewish people are evil people and they persecute Jews. What an incredible change that takes place just within about 150 years. Totally incredible.